So now as we have touch base with the locator, so let me teach one more final sentence in the Xpath. Okay, so which we call it as an normalized space. So in the real time, so like for sure, you will face this situation. So where we need to use the normalized space. So what is the need of this normalized space syntax in the sense? So generally, whenever we use this syntax, it will remove the redundant space. So what is mean by redundant space? So redundant space is nothing but we call it as an either it can be of an leading space or in sometimes it can be of an trailing space or sometimes it can be kind of an repeated white space. Okay, so now let me just take you one sample application and you will understand much better. Pick this Salesforce and even here it will be kind of a normalized space, I guess. Yeah, here the normalized space is available. Okay, so when we are going to use this normalized space in the sense I told whenever the redundant space is applicable we are going to use this normalized space. And what is meant by redundant space in the sense, so we will be having the leading space, trailing space and repeated white space. So now let me just take the example of the Salesforce and I am have right clicked and inspected this particular button called as an start my free trial. And in this node, right, we don't have any other locator property. And for sure, so we should use the Xpath syntax and you may try to use the text of syntax. So like we can provide the double slash of tag name. So provided by the keyword called as an text of, and we are going to provide the respective text value. But when I double click on this text value, so like you could see, so there are many spaces, so which is present start of this word, so which we call it as an the leading space. And also like we are having many spaces after end of the this particular word, we call it as an trailing space. And in sometimes what we will be having, so we will be having some duplicate white space. So duplicate white space in the sense instead of one spaces, like we may have multiple spaces. So now if I try to use this particular text of sentence, so how we will be writing, so double slash of I'm going to search in all node, I will be using the text of sentence and I'm just pasting the text value. But if I paste the text value, so it won't find the respective sentence, it says 0 of 0. So the reason is this particular text contain the redundant spaces, and whenever the redundant spaces is present, so we should use the keyword called as a normalized space. So whenever we use this normalized space keyword, it will remove the redundant space. It won't consider the redundant space while finding the element in the HTML DOM structure. And how we can write in the sense, like the syntax is like, so double slash of tag name. Okay, so we should use the keyword called as an normalize hyphen space followed by we should give the open and close bracket, and inside which so we should set our condition. So condition in the sense, in case if you are planning to check with the text value, so we can say text of. And there will be few situation, even the attribute value may have some redundant spaces. So during the time, so instead of text, so we can specify the attribute. So which attribute you want to consider. So if you want an id, we can specify the id, etc. So we can specify the attribute as well, because even the attribute can contain the redundant spaces. And followed by after the syntax, so we should give the equal to symbol, and we should provide the text value. And in this case, like we need to provide the attribute value. So whenever we use the syntax, like it won't consider the redundant spaces. So it will remove the redundant space and it will try to search the element by ignoring the redundant spaces. Now let me just convert the same syntax. So I can say double slash f. I'm going to search in all node. So I'm just using the asterisk symbol and I'm just using the open and close square bracket, and I'm using the keyword called as an normalize hyphen space, and then like we need to specify the condition. So condition in the sense like we are going to use the text of syntax. I'm just specifying the text of syntax, and at the end I'm adding the equal to symbol and I'm adding the text value. So now if I try to use the syntax, I'm just copy pasting the syntax and I'm navigating back to the Salesforce application and I'm pasting the syntax. So now you could see it is showing like one of one result. So even though so the white spaces are present, the redundant spaces are present, so this normalized space will ignore the redundant spaces, and we can use it in syntax. And even this is the one of the syntax in Xpath, like wherever you need you can use accordingly. I can say like driver dot find element by dot, and even this is the syntax of the Xpath and we call it a regular expression. So you can paste that regular expression and whatever the action you need. So either you are going to do the click action, or you are going to do the send keys, or you are going to do the get test value. So whatever the action you are going to perform on the specific node, so you can use it up. Okay, so this is one more
Um,
syntax which is available in the Xpath. And even
but I
like,
see that I'm so sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you, but I see that start my free trial, which is present in the frame. So,
so if that is
uh,
the present in the frame, you need to switch into the frame and you need to handle it up.
okay, okay,
Okay, so that is what I told. So whenever or before automating, so even like in this case, if I try to run the program, what happened? It will says no such element exception. But we are damn sure like the syntax is correct. So then what we need to check? So we need to check whether it is present inside the frame or not. If it is present inside the frame, you need to switch inside the frame and then like you need to use the syntax. Okay.
okay.
Okay. And there
So,
will be a few other cases. Even the attribute value can has a redundant spaces. So now let me just voluntarily provide some redundant spaces. So let's say like after the let me take this id attribute, and before this username I'm having the multiple spaces, and after this username I'm having the multiple spaces. So now if I try to write the Xpath syntax, how we write the Xpath syntax, the traditional Xpath syntax, we call it as a double slash of at id is equal to, in a single quotes we are going to provide the attribute value. But now I have changed the attribute value. Just let me just copy paste and then we'll update it. So I'm just providing this attribute value, but if I try to search, okay, so what happening here, it is showing 0 of 0 result. The reason is like, so the spaces are present, so which is nothing but we call it as a redundant spacer. And how we can ignore the redundant spaces in the sense like we need to convert with the help of the syntax called as a normalized space. So I just explain what is the syntax. So we can use the same syntax, and here rather than considering the text value, we are going to check in an id, so which we call it as an attribute. So I'm just specifying the attribute and we need to specify the attribute value. So what is the attribute value which is present here? So now I'm just pasting the attribute value. So now if I copy paste the syntax and if I try to search here, so I'm able to find the element. So even though it's like the spaces are present, so it is ignoring the redundant spaces. So whenever the redundant spaces are present, so we should ignore the redundant spaces only with the help of the syntax called as an normalized space. Okay, so for sure like in the real time, so you will face this situation. So like even if a single space is present before it, so sometimes it will be like id space username underscore container. So even it won't work in the syntax because some space is present, so which is nothing but which we call it as an like a trailing space or the leading space is present. And repeated white space in the sense, sometimes what happen in any of the attribute, in like we can say user space, namespace, group. Okay, so we can say like it is separated by the single space. But in some case what happen, it may separated by the multiple spaces, so which we call it as a duplicate white spaces. And even if you exactly copy the syntax and if you try to use in the Xpath syntax, it won't find the element because like it is having the duplicate white spaces. And if you want to ignore the duplicate white space, then for sure, right, what you need to do, so like I can give this syntax, okay, in this particular syntax called as a normalize space. I can just copy paste this attribute value, and while copy pasting the attribute value, so you don't need to like provide the duplicate spaces. So you can just provide the single space and you could able to see it is able to find the element because it won't consider the duplicate spaces. Okay, so whenever there are leading space or the trailing space or the repeated white space, so please use the syntax called as an normalized space because like it always remove the redundant spaces which is present either in the attribute or in the text value. Okay, so any doubt in this? So now this is the all possible locators which is available in the Selenium.
Sir, I have a question about the start my free trial. So there is something confusing about this for me. So what is the purpose of the start my free trial that we have to normalize the space tags? I couldn't get variable
So the
right here.
purpose is like if like you could able to see, right, so in case if you are planning to use this attribute value, and if you try to use in the traditional syntax, like let's say like if you are trying to use in the traditional syntax called as an double slash of at id is equal to in a single quotes, like you are providing the attribute value, so in this case, right, it won't find the element. So the reason is
Okay.
like the spaces are present. So if you need to ignore the spaces, then we should use the syntax called as a normalized space.
Okay.
So this normalized space can be only used with XPath.
Yes, it
So
can be
we
used only
can't
with the
use with
Xpath.
other CSS and all.
No,
Okay.